How are you doing? I'm fine. Good? This time I'm here with it's a very old yeah, well, I think it's like, very, very strict. Because the number of visits you can get. That's what it is. So I think that he has to find out only 3 places outside. And this time, I think this is a bit of center. Well, it's not big challenges this time.
इससे कहाँ से तो माइनस प्लस वाले ऑन ऑफ का अलग होगा ना ये रहा ऑन ऑफ
After at lunchtime I'm going. Your system is right after lunch.
तीन दिन तक लाइव है 3 दिन तक पूरा लाइव आ जाएगा
Next
How are you? Fine. On the right. How long did you stay? Sure, yes, it's fine. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Well, actually, I keep very uncomfortable. But anyway, I think that's cool.
Well, I'm actually, I actually,
Yeah, that's just
Ladies and gentlemen, kindly settle down. We are about to begin the conference. Thank you. Namaskar and a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests and dignitaries from across the realms of science, technology, and society. I, on behalf of TIFAC, find a unique privilege in standing at the door of eminent scientists and scholars on an equally challenging and intriguing subject of natural disaster. I, Neha Bhatia, play host to you on behalf of the organizers, TIFAC, at the 6th Annual Conference of the International Society for Integrated Disaster Risk Management. The theme for today's event is Disaster Risk Reduction, Challenges and Opportunities for Sustainable Growth. Ladies and gentlemen, you all will agree with the fact that disasters play havoc to mankind and biology of life. It is evident that natural disasters are a negative function to our process of growth and development. I, on behalf of the organizers, invite the assembled top brains and thinking minds to take on this rider of truth, and our experience, our intellect, and our diligence will be assimilated to evolve a roadmap for us. This is not a challenge for India alone, because from Japan to Chile and Iceland to South Africa, natural calamities can occur anywhere. The natural disasters are already due to human development and invention when in a moment the towering heights of growth turns to piles of rubble. We constantly and consistently need to organize and manage the resources and responsibilities for dealing with the humanitarian aspects of emergencies, in particular preparedness, response, and recovery, in order to lessen the impact of disasters. It has rather become a necessity for every country. Today at TIFAC-IDRIM-2015, not only we get a chance to hear the dignitaries, also it is an opportunity to meet them, interact with them, and have a learning experience with them. And before I invite the dignitaries on stage, I would like to share a quote by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, where he says, "Don't dream to be something, rather dream to do something great." On that note, ladies and gentlemen, with all the honor and respect, may I take the privilege in inviting and welcoming on stage our chief guest for today, Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs, Shri Kiran Rijiju. Can you have a huge round of applause, everybody? And may I also request the other dignitaries to please join us on stage. A very, very warm welcome to you, sir. A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you all for taking the time out. Can we have a huge round of applause, everybody, for this? Thank you so very much. To welcome our chief guest and dignitaries, may I request Dr. Anil Kapoor, sir, Chairman TIFAC, to please step forward. Can we have the bouquet of flowers, please? Let's welcome Shri Kiran Rijiju, Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs. Let's welcome Mr. Jaco Seiler, Country Director UNDP. Let us welcome Dr. Joanne Byron, Program Director, Risk Policy and Vulnerability, IASA. Welcome. Let's welcome Professor Norio Okada, President IDRIM, and Professor EPRI, University. Let's welcome Professor Prabhat Panjan, Executive Director, TIFAC. And to welcome Dr. Anil Kapoor, may I request Professor KVL Subramanian, Chairman, Organizing Committee, to please step forward. Thank you so very much. Very, very warm welcome to you once again. Well, to mark the auspicious beginning of this prestigious day, I request all the dignitaries to please step forward to light the ceremonial lamp. Next 3 days are going to be filled with knowledge. Let's begin with lighting ourselves with knowledge as well.
With a small decoration.
Thank you so very much. Comments today, the lamp lighting ceremony. Thank you all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you all would like to hear from them. First, I'd like to call on stage a gentleman who is an executive director at TIFAC. He received his PhD degree from University of California, Berkeley, based on his research related to nuclear fusion at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. He's a recipient of the National Science Talent Search Award. He served as professor at Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communication Technology, Gandhinagar. During this period, he worked on many real-life problems, including the societal issues. In particular, ladies and gentlemen, his work has helped improve quality of life of many persons with disability. His work has won many accolades, including HP Innovates 2009 Award, NCP Emphasis Universal Design Award 2012, and the Bihar Gaurav Samman 2012. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for Professor Prabhat Ranjan.
Honorable Union Minister of State for Home Affairs, Mr. K. Chairman, TIFAC Governing Council, Dr. Arvind, President, IDRIM Society, Professor Norio Kada, Program Director, Risk Policy and Vulnerability, YASA, Dr. John Bad, Union Representative, Jaco, Chairman, Organizing Committee, Professor K. Suran, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to all of you. We seem to be undergoing the hottest years in many parts of the globe, and especially the October seems to be one of the hottest. So not only weather-related disasters are unfolding around the world, Delhi is giving very warm welcome to all of you. Actually, we seem to be very warm compared to the earlier year. The International Society, the IDRIM rather, this organization that we are doing the 6th annual conference, the theme has already been mentioned, this disaster reduction challenges of sustainable growth. Weather-related disturbances apart, as we prepared for this conference with packing registration kits day for yesterday, we started to feel our state. And we saw a strong quake hit in neighborhoods in Afghanistan, which affected Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northern part of India, including Delhi. So, and we have seen unfortunate loss of lives. Several hundred lives have been lost already. This clearly undermines the need for this kind of conference where disaster does not distinguish between man-made boundaries. Nearly 2 years back, 3 organizations came together, TIFAC, IDRIM, and YASA, with the concept of this particular conference. Initial periods were tough. We're not finding many hands to hold together this conference, but however it is struggling, we received a very strong support from UNDP. And slowly, many hands joined us together, and we're surprised this is one of the most successful participation in this IDRIM series of conference, where we have more than 300 participants, and out of that more than 120 are foreign delegates. I'm personally very happy to be standing in front of this August gathering, but for more than 10 years, I was professor of sensor networks, and the very first lecture that I gave to motivate the students to take this course was a scenario of disaster in form of earthquake hitting in 2050, and describe how sensor network technology is going to change things, starting from early warning to disaster relief and rehabilitation. So I'm very pleased to be standing in front of this gathering, which is expert in all aspects of disaster management. I would like to take this opportunity to brief you a little bit about TIFAC, the organization that I represent. It's set up as a technology think tank for more than 25 years under Department of Science and Technology of Government of India as an autonomous body. Currently, the Auditing Council of TIFAC is chaired by Dr. Anil Kapoor, who has been guiding us since last several years. I'll take a couple of minutes to brief you about TIFAC's activity. One of the things that we do is to look at future and try to prepare a document, vision document for India. So we had done Technology Vision 2020 about that one over 20 years back, 95, 96 we had released. That time our Dr. Kalam was our president as well. He was our chairman. Now we are ready with Technology Vision 2035, which is being done under Dr. Kapoor's chairmanship. I don't have time to go into details of this, but we also carry out process of horizontal scanning through which keep track of all the technology trends. We have programs to support innovation starting from patents. We have been filed patents free of cost for all academic institutes as well as government R&D institutes. We have a unique program where we train women who are a mid-career break in intellectual property right activity by giving them a fellowship of 1 year and 1 year training. And this process we have generated more than 10% of all the intellectual IPR professionals within the country. We have programs to technology transfer as well as technology commercialization. We have to support large industry by training them in foresight, but we also have programs to support small industries. One is the MSME cluster program, and then we have programs to enhance export of MSME sector through technology infusion. We also initiated a program by trying to bridge innovators. Most of the government support system starts after innovation taking place. We started a program by which we try to bridge innovators. One of them is joining students to a small industry through internship program and also trying to set up innovation lab. One more activity that is important for this is that we have also a program where technology can play a role in disaster-prone zones. For example, one of the work we are doing is looking at one particular river called Kosi River, which flows from Nepal into India. It brings a lot of silt. We're trying to look at the silt, analyze it for its alternative use, and we are already finding some success. We are present on social media, so you can actually join us. Let me conclude my talk by saying that I would like to point out the work done by Mr. Sangeeta Bakshi over the last 1 year or so in attending this conference. It was very hard work for her. My thanks also to many other colleagues and other members of various committees that made it possible. This event is possible, and we have large participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite here Professor Norio Okada. He is the director of the Disaster Prevention Research Institute, Kyoto University. He holds a master's degree and PhD in civil engineering from Kyoto University. Professor Okada's main research activities focus on integrated disaster risk management as well as on what has been coined implementation science. He is one of the originators of the Nexus-IDRIM initiative, which is a network of researchers and practitioners dedicated to implementing integrated disaster risk management. May I take the privilege to call Professor Norio Okada here. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, everybody. On behalf of Integrated Disaster Risk Management Society, or we typically call it IDRIM Society, and as president of this society, I'd like to heartily welcome all of you to such a topic, a long distance to come, or spend a lot of time to come to this place. But before that, I should say that without the efforts from the side of TIFAC, particularly Professor IDRIM, and also Dr. Anil Kapoor, and many others. Nothing would have been done this way and would not have been able to be here, at least in this beautiful shape. So I'd like to thank Robert Ranjan and his colleagues and his team for organizing this wonderful ceremony. Thank you very much. Please, everybody join us and join me in applauding. And also, supporting team for so wonderful making this meeting so meaningful. Thank you very much. Okay, and also I should mention many names, though I don't have time to name everyone. But I'd like to mention Mr. Ministers. Minister's name should be for taking this opportunity to come to this place. Thank you very much. And okay, I have three messages to convey with you. One is, let's take pride in this society I-DRIM integrated justice management. It's a kind of like very unique banner, I would say, scientific community which has been discussing and trying to do our best in terms of doing research, but not merely pure research, but into science way, how to make this world much safer in an inclusive manner. How to lighten our society. We need more light, but we have to dream about it. So thank you very much for setting up that wonderful ceremony. It's extraordinary appreciation for us, very symbolic for our effort. Thank you very much. So we should take pride in this name, I-DRIM. But I-DRIM also needs a lot of collaboration, alliance, and this is a wonderful occasion for us to be here. Every time we go, last time we were in London, Canada, Ontario. We are now here in New Delhi, India, and thanks to TIFAC and other supporting organizations, we are here. So we are here to build up and reinforce our alliance efforts regarding I-DRIM activities and challenges. My message number 2 is this time alliance should be definitely multidimensional, but particularly three-dimensional or trilateral. And this time, we are lucky to see this kind of a challenging development. Here we have Young Wai, who's being a great contributor, one of the oldest people who has been doing a lot in establishing this I-DRIM society. But she also has another hat, IASA, regarding risk management fund. And she contributed a lot to our great effort. So IASA and TIFAC collaboration has been tremendous in our effort to get it all linked to our effort, I-DRIM. So it's a kind of three-dimensional challenge we have. It just occurred to me that our effort of trying to extend our coping capacity and resilience in terms of knowledge-wise, or hardware-wise, or information-wise, whatever, could be considered just like this building, this wonderful building. And it's three-dimensional, hardware, software, and maybe humanware. But also our alliance this time, DDRI, has also contributed a lot. that I believe one way and another way, IASA and TIFAC, so three-dimensional effort in here. So we'd like to, it's like trying to say, establish a new building. Yeah, this opportunity here is a kind of a tentatively set up place. So I'd like to see when we depart this place in 3 days, to see more consulate buildings set up here. Say from lots of feedback from the audience and those who collaborated to make this chance visible. Quickly, let me just mention one more. The third message is our coping capacity effort should be, in a way, sustainable. And we have young scientist session. This is a unique effort that has been in existence since the beginning. Tomorrow, you'll see this special young scientist session for us to build new generations, the third generation. Okay, so I'd like to ask you, each of you, particularly senior people, distinguished keynote speakers, invited speakers, many, please do come and encourage young scientists tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Okay, having said that, thank you very much for being this place, and let's hope that this opportunity will grow when we participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kala, for addressing the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, next we call Dr. Joanne Wyatt. She is the Program Director of the Risk, Policy and Vulnerability Program at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, IASA. She is an economist by training. Her current interest is global change and the risk of catastrophic events, and she is investigating options for improving the management of catastrophic risk in transition and developing countries. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joanne Wyatt.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's a real privilege to see such a turnout here in India, and also such distinguished guests who are coming to open this conference. I'm welcoming you from IASA, and I thank you for saying the name, so I don't have to say it again, but we just go by IASA. And for those of you in the audience who don't know about IASA, I hope in the next 2 or 3 minutes that I can convince you that you should know about IASA. So, but before I do that, let me just say that there's quite a few of us, and when I end my discussion, I'm going to ask those who prepare yourself, I'm going to ask all of you who are some way associated with IASA to stand up, so that we'll know here in the auditorium who we can talk to if we want to find out more. And I want to point out that Professor Ranjan here and Sangeeta Basti are representatives at IASA. TIFAC is actually our member organization from IASA. So it's a really great privilege to be here. And the idea of having this conference here in Delhi actually started with a conversation that I had with Sangeeta almost 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago, that maybe this would be a good idea. And it's turned out to be a fantastic idea because there's just been so much interest in India, but also outside of India in actually coming to this conference. So we're very, very excited about it. So, let me tell you about IASA very, very quickly. And I'm sorry, I don't have some slides here to help me. First off, India is not the only member country in IASA. There's 22 others, stretching all the way, actually, practically all the continents now. I think most of you here at this conference are actually in a member country of EASA. So what does that mean? What does that mean for you? Well, what does EASA do? EASA is a global research organization located in Austria, just outside of Vienna. We have right now 3 major themes where we work. One is on climate change, and particularly climate and connection with energy. We have a large program on energy. We also do a lot of work on food security, and particularly associated with water. And we have a particular focus on poverty and equity. And how do we go about our research? I think this is rather unique. We are an institute of systems analysis, so we do a lot of models. We look at drivers of transformation in these areas, and of course, one thing we all know is that we're going to have major transformation to approach these global issues. And we also apply what we call systems methods to approach these problems, and we look very closely at actually how we move from analysis to actually doing something about these problems on the ground. So we have an area we call policy and governance. We have programs at EASA. I mentioned in the introduction, I'm directing one of the programs on risk, policy, and vulnerability. And in this program, a focal point of this program is catastrophic risk, and looking at it from a systems approach from many, many different angles. I'm not going to say more. I want to try to talk to each and every one of you while I'm here. If you want to find out more, please, just come up and we'll have that conversation. Before I close, I would like to say that, why should you care about EASA? Well, one reason you should care about EASA is that there's many of you have the possibility of actually coming and working with us. First of all, we have in-house researchers from, I think now, something like 30 different countries at the Institute. We have a lot of programs. I particularly want to mention, also because I'm dean, but I would particularly like to mention our Young Scientist Summer Program. Norio talked to you about the importance here at this conference of our Young Scientist session. I should say that the very first conference and the very first Young Scientist session took place at EASA. It was before it was called IDRIM, but it wasn't. This particular conference had its first meeting at EASA some 15 years ago, and we had this Young Scientist session because young scientists are really very much of importance at EASA. And we have our Young Scientist Summer Program for if any of you out there are advanced PhD students. There's an application right now on our website, www.easa.ac.at. Just go to our website, there's an application there, apply for our Young Scientist Summer Program. You won't regret it, I promise. We also have a postdoctoral program at EASA, also on our website. We also have a lot of visiting scholars who come to EASA. And so I'd like to end by just asking all of you here this audience who are at EASA or have been at EASA in any of these capacities or collaborated with EASA, who know our institute, if you would at least put up your hand or maybe even stand up so we know who we can get in touch with. And I think even in our distinguished panel here, I think we have more than one, right? Yes, stand up. Yes, okay, very good. Okay. Right, okay. Some postdocs I see some XYS Peters, Young Scientists. So look around, these are the people you want to talk to. Also, I've got a lot of pamphlets, so if you want to know more, come to who you just, the faces you just saw. So, okay, with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bayer, for giving us an insight on EASA. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, next we have amongst us Mr. Jaco Seiler, Country Director UNDP, and he'll be addressing you all on behalf of UN. Can you please have a minute? Very long.
Dear Honourable Minister of State, Sri Chitu, members of the panel and the dais, and I think more importantly also those travelling from far distances to be at this conference. It's been a great honour for me on behalf of the UN and UNDP to be also on this panel. If I listen to the many doctors and professors in this room, I'm sometimes reminded of a holiday break that I had after I was in university or during university, and I returned actually back from the university and walked into my house, and my neighbor was standing there. And as I walked in, the neighbor turned to me and said, or actually asked me, so how are you making it at university? And before I could respond, my father jumped in and said, no, he's not making it, I am making it, he's spending it. So I think in some ways it's nice to come back to such an honored and known community, and also to discuss very important issues that is not only important for us in the UN, but I think also for many people sitting in this room, and also for governments wherever that might be. I think it's very clear that the World Conference in Sendai focused on three important areas in the framework that needs to be developed. The first is really on how to increase information. The second is how to strengthen governance. The third is how to look at financing for disasters. And lastly, but not least, how to also create responsive capacities to deal with disasters wherever that might be. And therefore, I think that this conference comes at a very appropriate time, and it also brings together people from various sectors and communities, whether it's in the government, academia, civil society, or people working specifically on disasters, with a common future. And I think it is very well captured in the quote from Sophocles, who said that the future cannot aid those who do nothing. And I think the purpose of this conference is really to set out frameworks and also to develop plans that can really make the world, and also wherever the various communities are, more resilient and more prepared for disasters and for various impacts on society. We have seen in South Asia, but also here in India, that there is really the impact of disasters can be really quite catastrophic. Over the past 3 decades, the increase of disasters has really globally increased, but most of all, specifically in Asia and the Pacific regions. Scientific studies predict that extreme rainfall events and the intensities of floods will continue to increase over the next years, not only in the region, but also specifically here in India. During 1980 to 2010, India experienced nearly 431 natural disasters, which killed about 140 people and affected 1.5 billion people in one way or another. In addition, the Global Assessment Report indicates that in 2015, the annual losses as a result of disasters will annually be in the region of 300 billion a year. And this will increase in 2030 to nearly 415 billion every year. However, we've seen that also the investment in disaster effective measures can really minimize these losses. And India, and I think the government of India, is a wonderful example of what can be done and how measures can be put in place. For instance, we in the UN, but together with the government and also the government of Orissa, saw that compared to a super cyclone that hit Orissa government in 1990 or 1999, where 10,000 people lost their lives, when measures were put in place and active disaster risk training across the state were offered to various people at various levels, and the government took an active role in addressing disaster, that when a similar super cyclone hit in 2013, the loss of lives were only in the region of 20 people, which is still a lot, but shows the effective measures and preventative measures can really increase also the effect of how many people might be affected by these disasters. And I think this holistic approach is really a wonderful example also for this conference of what can be done when preparedness is properly addressed and implemented in society. I think it's also important that we recognize that to strengthen various disaster risk reduction efforts, that we really need to manage capacities in various, not only government institutions, but also civil society, and that it needs to be connected across a wide range of efforts. These efforts cannot be done just at the grassroots level, or just by civil society, or just by the government. It needs to be well connected. And I think we often see in various societies, especially those that are affected by disasters, that you have a lot of good sparks. You have good effort, whether it is by certain groups, organizations, you have good research being implemented in certain communities or areas, or you have certain government institutions that often take disasters very, very seriously. However, similar to electricity, I think the challenge is often that these sparks must be connected. Otherwise, they just say sparks, and if they're not connected, they can't create the electricity that is needed to save lives and also to effectively address these hazards that often hit communities the most. And therefore, I think a conference like this that discusses also various issues from governance to decision-making processes to mainstreaming DRR in various policy, but also implementation mechanisms are really important to reflect on where else and what else can be done to be effective. Yesterday, I was very privileged actually to be involved in a conference that worked with the Airport Authority of India on making airports more disaster risk affected and more effective in addressing these disasters. It is a small effort, but I think a very important effort if you see that airports often become the hub for outreach and also the hub for providing support to communities that are affected by disasters. And often if the airports are not ready for that, you can't really have a comprehensive approach to deal with disasters. This is one, I think, very small example of what needs to be done across many departments, many agencies, and also many institutions if we really want to have a comprehensive and holistic approach. I want to end up by just saying also in our various efforts across the UN agencies that work on disasters, we have really learned that a lot of things need to be done to be effective. Some of these include undertaking complete multi-hazard research into risk and vulnerability of human settlement, and also specifically into infrastructure development. Secondly, we need to develop methodologies for determining risk and vulnerability with specific human settlements, specifically those that are most affected, and these are often the poor communities who don't have the mechanisms in place. Thirdly, it's very important to prepare guidelines on location, design, and operation of potentially hazardous industries and activities. Again, we saw some of that when the tsunami hit. And the global effect that it had on hazardous industries and how it can also affect large communities. Fourthly, we need to develop tools and encourage disaster-sensitive development planning. Fifthly, we need to further develop the dissemination of information on disaster-resistant buildings and construction technologies. And I think lastly, the investment in capacities at all levels of society and the increase of information to make people more prepared across society is crucially important. It is therefore hoped that this conference and the participants like yourself here will really take these issues seriously and also come up with even more important technologies, but also more solutions that can really help this very, very important effort. And I really thank you for being here and also for the privilege to open this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the next dignitary who I've been inviting here is Dr. Anil Kapurkar, who is chairman at TIFAC. He joined the Hava Atomics Research Center in 1964, following the one-year postgraduate training with top rank in nuclear science and technology in the atomic energy establishment. He became the director of work in the year 1996 and was the chairman Atomic Energy Commission and secretary to the Government of India's Department of Atomic Energy. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Anil Kapurkar.
of State for Home Affairs, Sri Kiran Rijiju, Dr. Joan Bayer from ISR, Professor Norio Okada, Dr. Sellers, my dear friend Professor Prabhat Ranjan, and Professor Subramanian, ladies and gentlemen. As the chairman of the host organization, TIFAC, let me add my words of welcome to all of you to this important conference on disaster risk reduction, challenges and opportunities for sustainable growth, being organized under the aegis of the International Society for Integrated Disaster Risk Management. At TIFAC, as was mentioned by Professor Prabhat Ranjan, we are a technology think tank. We look at various dimensions of technology, and it's clear that in looking at all these dimensions, the risk part of technology, particularly when technology tends to become intense, particularly when technology involves very large amounts of energy, bottles of energy, and so on and so forth. Then the assessment of risk and methodologies for minimization of risk, or in other words, methodologies for enhancing the benefits and minimizing costs, they become very important. And hence, I think it's wonderful that TIFAC has been asked to host this conference, and I'm sure this will benefit us in shaping our programs in years to come. As you just said, I have been associated with atomic energy, and in that sense, we were probably the first organization in the country to systematically plan emergency management. The history of planning for emergency management in atomic energy is quite old. Now, of course, we have the National Disaster Management Agency and the related organizations which have done, I would say, a wonderful job, and we just heard the success achieved, particularly in the context of cyclones. It's also nice that we have IASA on this platform. I think I must thank you for the wonderful collaboration that exists between IASA and TIFAC. And I must also say that my first exposure to IASA was when IASA carried out the assessment of the North Sea disaster, long time back. But it was the first time for me how was a very detailed and very systematic study can give many insights which otherwise would not be possible. Coming to this particular theme of this particular meeting, I think we need to recognize that the disasters, we divide them into natural disasters and man-made disasters. But I think this division is not always simple. Many times the consequences of disasters or the events, they become very severe because of the the acts of man, where the naturally triggered disaster assumes a much greater proportion than otherwise it would have. And now we are witnessing actually
there are many examples I can give, but the extreme example of that is in fact the serious proportions that climate change issues are achieved in the context of possible disasters. So, climate change, seemingly natural phenomena, actually is triggered by man-made activities, and then you go to very large-scale disasters, which may well be much more severe than anything that we have witnessed so far. So, the short point I want to make is that in our assessment, many times it so appears that we carry out assessment of the risks arising out of natural events. And it's very clear in case of many of the large projects that have been seen that the assessment, the extreme value assessment that one carries out at the beginning, 20, 30 years down the line, you find that that assessment is inadequate. And you have to now cope with an existing plan where you require to re-engineer some additional reinforcement because it has to cope with the events which may be more severe than what it was, what the project was designed for to begin with. And I think in this there are several elements of human understanding which we need to improve, both in terms of understanding different source mechanisms, in terms of estimating consequences, and more importantly, in terms of figuring out that there are no slippage. Many times disasters assume very serious proportions because you suddenly take slippage, and then the consequences get magnified several fold. And I think in the assessment, it's very important that we are able to identify potential slippages around the events surrounding the project that one is talking about. So I think this whole subject of disaster management has, of course, a technology dimension, has a science dimension, and it has a society engagement dimension. And I think we need to work on all these fronts so that progressively we improve our capability in terms of minimizing the risks posed by disaster, if not the capability to eliminate these disasters altogether. In the context of this society engagement, I just want to cite or quote an episode which I myself witnessed. And it so happened that I happened to visit Japan just 1 month after the tsunami and the Fukushima accident. Obviously, that was a time when there was a lot of shortage of power because several nuclear power plants were shut down. It contributed around 30% of the electricity supply in Japan. And of course, I was interacting with colleagues from atomic energy in Japan. And then, of course, after the meeting, it was time to say goodbye. And I was very, very touched, but surprised. Because normally you say enjoy the evening, goodbye, good trip back home. Now it was also 1 month after Fukushima, the aftershocks of those earthquakes were still around. And every day 1 or 2 big earthquakes used to take place. And in Tokyo, you are usually in the high-rise buildings. So even a moderate earthquake will perceptible shaking of the building. And if you are there, then you feel as if you are in a swing. And of course, there was some panic among some people. It was knowledgeable people. And I think the
proportion of knowledgeable people in Japanese society is quite significant. So the colleague of mine, he said, enjoy the earthquake. So the short point is, if you are familiar with what's happening, if your understanding is at the right level, then even disasters won't create panic. And I think if we can reach that by way of understanding of science, application of technology, and engagement in society, and I think you can create a resilient society which can manage the potential disasters in a manner where the risks are minimum and the benefits are maximum. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have amongst us a gentleman who has served and contributed to the society, to the state, and the country as a whole. Well, let's welcome him, ladies and gentlemen. We have with us Shri Kiran Rijiju, Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs, Government of India. We are extremely privileged to have him with us. Welcome, sir.
Dr. Anil Kakotkar, Chairman of TIFAC, Dr. John Baer, Program Director of ISR, Professor Noria Ogada, Professor Prabhat, Professor Subramanianji, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to be part of this very important conference being organized in Delhi, and the lead role being taken by the organizers, especially the TIFAC, and the participation of ISR and all other stakeholders, and the great participation from various countries and the stakeholders. I feel that it's very timely and very effectively being organized, and India being one of the leading country now, initiate various steps to deal with the natural disaster challenges we are facing. It's very appropriate also to have this theme of your conference, disaster risk reduction, challenges and opportunities for sustainable growth. In fact, the other day, I was having a meeting with the Foreign Ministry, when we were talking about sustainable, the word sustainable, and we were trying to find out the appropriate Hindi word for sustainable. We were unable to find out which is the appropriate word for sustainable. Then the Foreign Minister gave some word which he was being fed by some of the scholars. So we found out the word tikao. Tikao is the appropriate word for sustainable. So the development process, the growth has to be sustainable. It has to be lasting. So that is why when we talk about programs and policies and all kind of the opportunities of the government, it has to be sustainable. And without going into the issue of disaster risk reduction, any developmental process will not be complete. Because in one stop of incident, everything can be dashed. We can go back to the old ancient time in one stop of huge earthquake or some disaster. And we have to be prepared. I have always said that we are going to face more disasters. It is inevitable. Either by way of this erratic climatic behavior or because of our own conduct, the reckless conduct of human beings. And the way we are expanding our growth, our life, we are expanding the infrastructures, reaching out to those unreached areas, and with the advent of new activities all over, we are going to encounter disaster. It is a fact. And also, I have stated that though India is much more well equipped, but we are not fully prepared yet. So is the case with most of the countries. When Japan was considered to be one of the best prepared countries, but when the tsunami came, it was beyond comprehension. And it's really, if a magnitude of an 8 plus in Richter scale of earthquake strikes, what can you do? The only thing you can do is to minimize the risk, reduce the damage. So we have to be prepared. And I can assure you that Government of India is really taking very, very serious steps in terms of policy making, in terms of providing directions, in terms of strengthening the mechanism. But ultimately, it is the stakeholders. And that is where I depend lots on the scientists, the experts, people who are doing the research, those who are very on the job, and all the international agencies who are working across the globe and in India are doing wonderful job. And I have been having the privilege of good interaction, very valuable inputs from the people, the experts who are working on the job. And as a minister and as a minister in charge for disaster management in the government, I have been trying to give my fullest time possible to understand the issue and to supplement with whatever best possible steps from the government side. And I have always been responding to the queries of members of parliament in the House. The government is more responsive than what it used to be. And we have to be. It's not something we are, making a showcase. You have to. And that is why when the Sendai Declaration took place this year in March, we were the country, India, we presented and requested that India may be given the privilege to host the first Asian Ministerial Conference for Sendai. And we have been given this privilege. So next year we are going to host the Asian Ministerial Conference in the Pacific region. And we are prepared for that. And under my chairmanship, we have formed a committee and we have already taken 2 meetings. So we are almost ready 1 year in advance. And of course, in the coming month, we are going to have lots of series of government level, ministerial level meetings. And we are committed to that. In fact, only in 2005, it has taken an institutional shape in India after that Hugo framework was accepted and India became signatory to that. And in 2005, when we passed this act in the parliament, the Disaster Management Act, I was a member of parliament at that, and I took part in the debate passionately, and I'm happy that today we have very well recognized National Disaster Management Authority at the center, and we have the Prime Minister is the chairman for that, and then we have the mechanisms in the state and in the district level. After all, we have to make it all India as well as to the ground level of the management, because the first response is always at the community level. So the resilience at the community level has to be robust. So the district collector, the panchayat, and the strengthening to the individual level is the ultimate aim of the whole process. So I'm quite sure that with the participation and coming together of all the stakeholders, we are able to really generate awareness within ourselves. And I've also felt that investment in disaster risk reduction is one very important area where we can really bring in the private sector. We have made an appeal to this private sector also that if disaster strikes, it's the companies, the industries, the vulnerable, the poor people, they are the first sufferers. So as per the World Bank estimates, also India has lost 2% of GDP growth due to natural disaster. So if India is growing at the rate of 7.2% GDP, that means we are actually growing by 9.2%, which would have been an excellent rate of growth. but because of the damages, the disasters, we have been pulled back by 2%. So it's a huge cost on our GDP. And then the scientific community in India really has contributed, and Mr. Taylor has pointed out that we can see the difference of the super cyclone in 1999, where nearly 10,000 people died in the eastern coast, and similar, nature of disaster, of identical impact, actually struck twice, Hiding and Hudhud, and of course I cannot say even if we have one death also is a huge, but we could really minimize, and that was 20. So of course we should see that there should be no death. But the application of science has really played a big role. The early warning system effectively tracking the root of the cyclone, and then the evaluation process. Everything went so well that there was a drastic change. Some of the steps we have taken recently, that research is also one area where we need to really emphasize a lot. So I had supervised some of the steps. For example, just 2 months back, we had this memorandum of understanding with the Jawaharlal University, where the NIT and Disaster Management has an MOU with JNU, and it will be mainly on research and MPhil and PhD level. We are going to have the papers, and very soon we want to give master's degree also. So in the research level, in the scientific level, we are going, and we are also keeping in touch with the higher educational institutions of India, the IITs, IIMs. We really need to integrate with the scientific community. And India as a country, we are so disaster prone. The geographic nature, our location is such that all kind of hazards, all kind of risk we are facing, from the very young Himalayan mountain, which is still growing, to the coastal, and we are in the fault line of this earthquake, and just day before also, we also felt the tremor of the earthquake strike in Afghanistan. So as I said in the beginning, that we are bound to face disasters, so it's better to be prepared. And I was having a meeting with the Delhi government and officers that if we have, suppose the earthquake which struck Nepal, and if that same magnitude struck India, and in some way close to Delhi, just imagine. And we should not just shy away from the reality that we are not prepared to that extent. And look at our town planning, how well we are. The national capital of India, Delhi itself, something happens in all Delhi, you can imagine. So I'm also planning of having a very coordinated meeting with the civil defense, the National Disaster Response Forces of the Director General Office here. We have a dedicated force team. Then we have other stakeholders. We need to have a very comprehensive plan, and all kind of readiness thing in our hand. And we must also have sometimes carry out drill. In Delhi, it's a high time that we should carry out a very real-time exercise, so that we should see that how citizens are, equipped, how mentally they are prepared, as Dr. Anil Karpakar mentioned that. Mentally also you should be prepared. Otherwise, in panic, half of people will die out of panic. So there should be no chaotic situation. In Japan, I was surprised when the tsunami hit the Sendai area. It was a tragedy, but the way Japanese people responded, fully, fast, swift, it was amazing. And within short time, the life was normal, those who are alive. Those who have lost their life, it was tragic. So how citizens respond to the situation also is as important as how we are prepared technically, scientifically. And from the government side, I can assure you that this government is really committed. You will be surprised, and at times you will be very appreciative of the way Prime Minister himself is taking this up. And he has given this disaster management as one of the priority areas of the government. And I am also very privileged to serve with such a very focused and decisive Prime Minister who thinks that the citizens must be provided all kinds of safety, and we cannot just excuse ourselves from any lapses. I can share many things, but I feel that since you have a very extensive 3 days conference, you're going to have deliberations on various aspects. All the experts, you will be sharing your thoughts, your legal documents, and all kinds of research work you have carried out. I'm sure all kind of the activities you're going to have in 3 days will be very beneficial for us, for the world, because our ultimate aim is to make this world less vulnerable for all. That is our ultimate objective. And it is the contribution of people like you who are dealing with the subject day and night, and you are the reason for making this place much safer, though we are facing lots of challenges. I will not take much time, but thank you for inviting me and be part of this inaugural session. And I'm sure that we will benefit a lot, especially the government will be watching, and we will be waiting eagerly for the outcome of whatever you draw out of this very important conference. And I wish all the best, successful conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Well, it reminds me of the saying in Sanskrit, Yatha Drishti, Tata Srishti, which means in English, as is our sight, so is our creation. And I'm extremely privileged to be sharing the stage with the visionaries, with the path-setters, with the leaders of this creation. And we'd like to thank them for their time, and we'd like to felicitate them with a memento. To do the honors, may I request Dr. Anil Kapoor, Chairman TIFAC, please step forward. Thank you so very much for your precious time. I'd like to thank Mr. Yaakov Seiler. Mr. Yaakov Seiler, Country Director, UNDP. Dr. Joanne Byron, Program Director, Risk Policy and Vulnerability. Yes. Thank you so very much. And Professor Norio Ohara, President, ITRIM, and Professor TIFAC University. Professor Prabhat Kanchan, Executive Director, TIFAC. And now I would request Professor K.V.S. Subramanian, Chair and Organizing Committee, to thank Dr. Anil Kapoor. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would request Professor K.V.S. Subramanian, please come forward to the vote of thanks. The gentleman holds PhD Civil Engineering, Northern Western University, Masters in Civil Engineering, University of Toledo, and BTech in Civil Engineering, IIT Delhi. He's worked as an associate professor in Grove School of Engineering, New York. He's got Outstanding Young Researcher Award, Grove School of Engineering, CCNY 2006, and Capital Research Fellow, Grove School of Engineering, CCNY 2006, and many more. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Professor K.V.L. Subramanian for the vote of thanks.
Distinguished dignitaries and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks for the 6th Annual Conference of the International Society for Integrated Disaster Management, TIFAC-IDRIM-2015. At the outset, on behalf of the organizing committee, I wish to offer my profound gratitude to Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs, for great invitation as speaker. It is indeed a very illuminating panel highlighting the Indian perspective on disaster management. It should truly give us guidelines in shortlisting some of the critical issues in disaster management to be taken. We are very thankful to Dr. Anil Kapoor for his kind guidance and for highlighting the issues we need to deliberate on during this conference. We are very thankful to Professor Ranjan for his continuous support and advice, which have greatly helped towards the successful organization of TIFAC-IDRIM-2015. We convey our sincere thanks to Professor Norio Okada, President IDRIM Society, Dr. Joanne Bai, Program Director of Risk Policy and Vulnerability, YASA, Sri Jaco Siliers, Country Director UNDP, for the gracious presence today and for highlighting the issues that we need to be discussing during the conference. We sincerely thank the members of our advisory committee for their valuable suggestions and giving us much needed support. The members of the advisory committee are Professor Pradeep Banerjee, Director IIT Roorkee, Professor C.R. Murthy, Director IIT Jodhpur, Professor Uday Desai, Director IIT Hyderabad, and Professor P.P. Majumdar of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. We take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to the distinguished panel of speakers, delegates from India as well as overseas, distinguished participants, and learned guests for participating in this event. You have accepted our invitation and come from different continents of the world, really for making this event successful. Your participation, I'm sure, will add depth and content to the deliberations. We have been fortunate to have some very eminent persons from academia, industry, governmental and non-governmental agencies working in the area of disaster management. I'm sure the participants would be benefited by attending this conference. We're also thankful to the TIFAC administration for providing us all possible logistics support towards organizing this event. We express grateful thanks to all the sponsoring organizations and agencies whose wholehearted support has made this conference a reality. I thank the rapporteurs and the volunteers who have been working diligently behind the scenes to make this event a success. Now, an event of this magnitude requires meticulous planning. I've been extremely fortunate to be able to draw upon the willing support of colleagues who demonstrated initiative and involvement in every step and made my job easier. While we cannot thank everyone by name, we must place on record appreciation of untiring efforts of the TIFAC team, colleagues in the civil society, and the team of the Indian Organizing Committee. Special thanks are due to all the members of the Indian Organizing Committee, with able help from Dr. Sangeeta Basi, who have been involved in this particular exercise for the last few months. Without their cooperation and full support, this conference would not have been possible. So once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this occasion. As we progress and grow together as a team, we anticipate future conferences and conference gatherings that will seamlessly operate and to the good of all. Thank you once again, and look forward to an extremely productive 3-day conference. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you all to rise for national anthem. very much. Well, once again, thank you, all the dignitaries, for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our next session, we have a tea break. Thank you so very much.
Parveen.
Very good.
Yeah.
चल रहा है, अभी भी चल रहा है। वेबसाइट इसकी वही है, ये टिप नाम से
देखना होगा ना। कल यूट्यूब पे जाना, यूट्यूब है ना, और उसमें जाके ये लिखना खाली होगा अपने क्या ये डाल देना। हाँ बस हाँ 1-.com अपने भी आ जाएगा, अपने आप सारा लाइव आ जाएगा। मेरा 98018037
अभी मेरी फोटो आ रही है।